So now that we've changed the Bendix, that starter motor is going to have the same problem on its output shaft. So we're going to quickly change that while we're at it. And if you just give it a little bit of a wiggle, sometimes that can give you another 1 or 2 starts on the day. So like I mentioned in the start of the video, some of the other problems that you can have trying to start the X30 engine at the track are in no particular order. Hey guys, welcome back to another amazing YouTube video from your friends at the Power Republic. Today's video we're going to be showing you how to pull out the Bendix and the starter motor off an X30 racing engine. Now this engine I know is a little bit problematic with it starting. I've been trying to get it going all week on the dyno and it's been giving me all sorts of trouble. But what we're going to talk about today is also some of the other problems that you might get when you're at the go-kart track trying to start an X30. So this is a question from the interwebs, so thanks to those guys that have been writing in with their karting problems. So now on to today's video. So when your engine doesn't start like this one, we're going to need to replace the Bendix and the starter motor. And to change that out, first we're going to have to remove the clutch and the clutch ring gear off the end of the crankshaft. First up, remove the clutch cover and the earth strap so you can get access to the crankshaft. Now we're going to remove the clutch drum retaining nut, washer, bearing. We've got the O-ring and the internal thrust washer as well. Now you will need a turned down 27mm deep impact socket to get this retaining nut off the end of the crankshaft. Remembering it is a left-hand thread on these IAME engines, so that means we're going to have to turn it clockwise to undo it. So using the rattle gun with your 27mm turned down impact socket, we're going to tighten the nut up, which will undo it because it's a left-hand thread. Now you can use your clutch puller inside the clutch shoes. You can just screw that in and then jack off the end of the crankshaft to pull the clutch assembly off the engine. These are held on with a taper lock and some Loctite, so you just need to break that to get these off, and then you can get access to the Bendix. Remove these 3 screws. And you can take the Bendix cover straight off and then slide the Bendix out of the engine. So I don't know if you can see it on the camera perfectly clearly, but the teeth on these Bendix here are starting to move out of shape, and if I turn it over you can see that some of them are chipped, and the flanks of the drive gear are all worn out. It's probably consumed a rock or something over the time, or it's just had too many starts and it's just worn out. So it's time to replace this Bendix reduction gear. How they work is the starter motor turns this guy here, and that throws out into your clutch ring gear and cranks the engine over. And then once the engine starts, it turns back out of the way and you drive out the gate. So now we've got the engine all apart, we can just clean up any excessive dirt and oil down here in the Bendix hole. Insert the new Bendix into its house. There's a spigot there that I've pre-greased. It's going to go down in its little needle roller bearing. Slide that in like so. Now you can hold it in here with this guy and you can still get the engine back together. Just careful you don't over tighten these because the screws only go into the plastic. So just nip them up with the rattle gun. I wouldn't zip it right up, and then you can hand tighten those with an Allen key. You can clean the crankshaft just with a little piece of emery paper, just to get off any of the old Loctite and give a nice clean surface for the new stuff to bite to. Then just wipe it off with a rag. Same for this guy here. Just clean off any of the old Loctite that's dried up in there. Just using a bit of emery paper. And then you can clean that off with a rag. Add some fresh retaining compound. Just need a little drop like that. And smear it around with your finger. And now you're ready to reinstall the ring gear onto the crankshaft. A little drop of Loctite onto the thread. Reinstall the retaining nut, remembering it's a left-handed thread. So undoing the nut We'll do it up. Now we can reinstall the internal thrust washer, then the O-ring, then the needle roller bearing, clutch drum retaining nut, a small drop of Loctite, and then the clutch retaining nut. Do that up with the 17. And you're good to go. Reinstall the clutch cover. And don't forget the earth strap. So now that we've changed the Bendix, that starter motor is going to have the same problem on its output shaft. So we're going to quickly change that while we're at it. The most common starting issue we see with the X30 is the starter motor bushes breaking. You can keep a spare starter motor in your toolbox, and to diagnose the starter motor, sometimes you can come in and just wiggle this little wire here. And if you just give it a little bit of a wiggle, sometimes that can give you another 1 or 2 starts on the day just to keep you, going and starting and then finishing the race or the race weekend or the practice day. So you can just give that little bit of a wiggle and it just makes enough contact in the bushes inside this starter motor to get you going. So if you can't get your engine to go and this is the culprit, I'm going to show you how to change your starter motor out, which is the only real solution other than using an external starter on the crankshaft to start your engine on the outgrid. And now to change the starter motor, it's way easier to do this job with the engine removed from the cart. Now you can get it done, but there's a lot of sort of hanging your tongue to the left and swearing and cursing to get the job done on the cart. So if you've got the time, take the engine off, put it on the bench, and then do the starter motor replacement just like this. First up, we're going to remove this clamp. There is a couple of little washers, so keep those to one side. Now we can remove the retaining screws, there's 3 of them, that hold the starter motor to the crankcase. There's one here, another one down through here. The third one's over here. Now we're ready to remove the starter motor. We can just put a screwdriver in here and just slowly lever it back off the crankcase, just nice and gentle. This little rubber O-ring will stop it from moving really easily, and so too will the bolts if you leave them in there. So you've got to get those out, otherwise they can jam the starter motor from moving out of the crankcases. So now with all the screws removed, you can lever the starter motor off the engine just like so. Now, like we mentioned earlier in the video, that Bendix had a little bit of damage, and so does the output shaft of this starter motor. You can see here that it snapped a whole tooth off. It's probably eaten some sort of rock or some sort of foreign debris that's made that tooth break, and when it did break, it's chewed up all the other teeth on the Bendix. So this has been the sort of constant source of our issues trying to start this X30. So to prepare the new starter motor, you will have to remove the starter motor wire from the other starter motor, and then it's just got a little Phillips head screwdriver, and we're just going to screw that guy on. They are a bit of a pain to get to because while you're trying to get the screwdriver in, it kind of bends it out of shape. Now to install the new starter motor, insert the nose into the crankcase and keep the O-ring in its little groove here at the back. It's sometimes easier to install the starter motor if the Bendix cover is removed, and then you can push the starter motor in, push the Bendix back into the starter motor, and you can put this cover back on. But that's a good trick if you can't get the starter motor in, is to leave this cover off, get the starter motor in. You can fix these bolts or put that cover back on. It doesn't matter which you choose to do first. So like I mentioned in the start of the video, some of the other problems that you can have trying to start the X30 engine at the track are, in no particular order, are the relay, the starter switch, seldom is the computer a problem, the glass fuse, the little earth loops, the bullet connector, the coil, and the little bullet connector. Obviously that was the older style harness that has been superseded by the newer one, which is way simpler, where the only major issues that we're having is these starter switches and stop buttons can play up, and they're easy enough to change by just pulling them out and swapping them around to see if one of them is faulty, or getting another one from your local go-kart shop. So the most common thing that can go wrong is a broken terminal or bullet connector. So sometimes it's best just to start there and then just check to make sure that they're still connected to the wire, because sometimes they can look like they're connected but they're actually loose. And these little earth straps, they break pretty regularly as well. A very easy thing to do is to check to make sure this fuse has not blown. You can get spares of these just from a service station as well, so keep some of those in the toolbox. As a last chance, you could probably steal one out of your car, but don't forget to put it back in before you drive home. So the least common problems that we have with the X30 is these three components here. The relay is probably next up in the line, followed by the starter barrel switch, and lastly the little computer. It's rare that we change these out at all. So now the easiest way to diagnose these problems is to switch them out for ones off your friend's go-kart, obviously, if there's some available. If not, you could use a multimeter, or you can just go and buy new parts if you think one is faulty. But realistically, I mean, you're stuck at the track, switching them out for someone that's there who's racing the same category is going to be the easiest way. And then checking these easy things like the fuse and the terminal connections, they're more common and way easier to check and fix if you're trackside. So the X30 race engine, it's awesome, and sometimes things just go wrong. That's part of racing. We are asking a lot of the engines and all their components when we're flogging them around the racetrack. Now you know how to fix starter motors, Bendixes, checking out those wiring harnesses for the little gremlins. So next time something goes wrong, fix it yourself out of the track or fix a friend's. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for tuning in, sharing the videos. Our Patreons and YouTube members, we really appreciate that little bit extra. You can also check out our amazing website, www.powerpublic.com.au. Get yourself a t-shirt or one of our awesome Racing Rituals video series tutorials. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.